This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Hello, world, and welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. Today's sponsor is A2 Hosting. I've been using A2 Hosting solid-state hosting solutions for our website at geekleader.com for many, many years now, and absolutely love their support, their service, and all the features that you get. You get access to cPanel. You get all of the things that you can imagine for a great WordPress experience, including their A2 optimized WordPress, which does extra security checks, extra lockdown. You can lock down your editor file so you can't edit anything inside there. You get alerts whenever there are file changes that are done. You can also do automatic updates, backups, and more with A2 Hosting. So highly recommend it. Go to geekleader.com/A2 to get more information and to sign up for their solid state turbocharged speed hosting today. Again, that's geekleader.com/A2. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Marjolein Duermeijer on the show. She is the Chief Content Officer at Riff, which is an AI technology company that works with virtual product placements and lots of cool things that I'm sure you guys have seen before. They've worked with producers of Black Mirror, Master Chefs, Big Brother, and lots of other shows. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get started. But anyway, Mar, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today in your career and what is it that you guys are doing over at Riff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually started my career in content. I've been at most of the major studios. Well, I actually started my career in the marketing, but quickly moved to content. And I literally sat on every chair. So I've been a producer, I've been a head of development, been a commissioning editor. But slowly, when you grow in your career, then you find where your real passion was. And my passion was truly on innovation. I always thought we could do this more efficient. We could do this better. How could we do this better? So I was always finding the challenges. And so before I joined Riff, I was actually on the operational side for Endemol Shine, which was recently bought by Bunny J. And I got in touch with Riff and started my career there and built my way up.
Awesome. So what is it that Riff does exactly?
So Riff is actually a very new player, and it connects brands to content in the broader sense of the word, say, in the sentence. I already mentioned before that I was at Endemol Shine, and I was always looking at how we could monetize more on the brands we had, and think about brands like you already mentioned them, Master Chef or Peaky Blinders or Black Mirror, and you're always looking at how can I, first of all, keep them healthy, how can I grow them in the landscape, but also what can we do more? And there were always a few things that I didn't that I wanted to find ways for to make it better, or to make it faster, or to make it more accurate. And one of the things was using the technology we have today to understand what we really have as a content. So, and Riff actually has, I always say it's sort of three pieces of technology. So the first one, it scans large amounts of content, and once it scans the content, it uses the AI platforms to find whatever is in that content. So it can find chairs, it can find people, it can find brands, it can find anything you think of. And once we've done that, then we understand what's in the content, but it makes it searchable. We call it also, it's scene intelligence. And once we've got that scene intelligence, then the second step, what we can do is we can find empty spots. So we can find opportunity. We can find tabletops, we can find billboards, we can find bathrooms. And then once we've determined that, then the third piece is that brands can come in and can place their materials wherever it can be placed. And that is, it depends if you're a brand or if you're a content owner. It has so many advantages these days. And think about simple stuff like content for a content owner, content is globalizing more and more. Talking about a show like MasterChef in Australia, it traveled in the time I was working at Animal Shine, it traveled to 144 countries, but we only monetized on the product placement once. So what if you could adjust that to every country? Then you open a whole new round of monetization, a whole new round of optimization using the latest technologies. But for a brand as well, think about things like brand safety, or I think everyone has followed the whole discussion with Netflix and the new advertising models, etc. It offers you a way of advertising without interrupting the program. And you can very locally advertise. So it doesn't need to be a global brand. You can place a local American brand in America, but you could also in the US, but you could also place a local UK brand in the UK in exactly the same piece of content, and which is very powerful to do it in a piece of content. And it can be in any piece of content. We've been talking about sports, we've been talking about content, we can do anything with archived material, but we're also working with some new shows. And having said that, we're working with some of the distributors and producers to look at filming their shows without any product placement and using the Riff solution to do the product placement.
So basically what you're saying is you can virtually put products into something that's already shot and created that they weren't there before.
Absolutely. And so we do it in a creative, contextual way, especially here in Europe. We've got a lot of regulations. And so we can set those parameters for any brand. So we can guarantee the continuity, but we can also guarantee the brand safety. And the way we do it in a dynamic way using the game engines. So that's a new offering. Of course, virtual product placement's been around for a long time, but not at scale. It was always painful and difficult and expensive. And the only reason content owners would use virtual product placement is because they either forgot something, they didn't honor the deal, or they had to erase something because they didn't have the rights to it. So what if you could do that virtually, and scalable, flexible, and affordable in a certain way? Then you open up a whole new level of advertising.
Yeah, so you could potentially have like AI where it knows the demographic of the person watching. Like, now we stream things. So, let's say I have a YouTube Live and that's how I'm watching my shows. Well, YouTube knows a lot of information about me. They know the things that I like, that I'm interested in. So when I'm watching a show, the product placement could be something that I'm interested in. Whereas if my mom was watching the show in a different part of the country, it could be a different product placement, something that she's more interested in.
Yeah, that definitely could be. Of course, we are dependent then on what's being fed to us by our clients. Our clients are the networks or the YouTubes or whoever wants to work with us, or the content owners, of course. So we need to understand that data. And honestly, measurement is one of the most difficult things in the industry, has always been, will always be. With the new regulations, it's also very, very difficult to get the correct measurement. Our first goal is not really the localization, so you get a coffee and your mom gets a tea, for instance, but it's also country specific. So coming back to the example of MasterChef, if you sell the product placement in Australia only for Australia and you sell it to 144 countries, you could potentially monetize 144 times. There might be an olive oil that's only for sale in Australia and it travels around the world. Why? What's the use? You could use another local olive oil. You could use anything else which people would buy because they like the program and they are triggered by it. So I think basically what you could say is we can place anything, anywhere, anytime. And I always say to people, what we do is we create an opportunity and we create a flexible and scalable opportunity. And it's about the creativity from either the brand or the content owner, how you would like to use that. We've had questions where people said, could you hide Easter eggs in our content? Of course we can. We can hide anything in any content, and we can insert anything in any piece of content. We've been doing tests also on live content, but it's up to you how you want to use it. And of course, we advise people, but it's just a new technology, can be used for so many different ways.
I think it would also help audience engage more with the show or movie or whatever they're watching if it's more localized content versus, like you said, an olive oil that's only in Australia. Well, if I'm in the US, I don't know about that olive oil. It doesn't resonate with me. But if it's something that I can buy here locally, then it's going to be more engaging to me as a viewer of that content.
Absolutely. And if you think of making that dish, then you'd rather have, you look for the ingredients that were on the table.
Right.
On that one. Yeah. So you would be triggered to use that olive oil that would be on the kitchen table than anything else. But again, you could do it for anything. We're doing a big thing on sports as well, where there's so many regulations, and working with the sports federations to implement that. There are actually big ways of monetization for sports federations, where you would say on the first hand, it's ticket sales. Well, they don't really increase, they maybe even decrease, because you need to sort of have an extra chair in between every chair, isn't it? And then second of all, you've got the licensing rights. And yes, there's a bidding war on sports rights, but you kind of know what it is. But the third one, which is really interesting again, is the sponsorship rights. So there's limited amount of sponsorship opportunity, and for sports as well, it's tremendous. If you could even do it per stream, so per city or per country, or you could offer local products, and that way you can be much smarter with buying and selling, advertising and sponsorship.
Now, is it something you can do, or have you seen any models where people are doing this after the fact? Like, so, my full-time job, I work for, I lead the technology group for a TV channel, and we broadcast mostly older content that we've acquired through acquisitions or something like that. So like reruns or things like that. Could we then sell product placements and then add them into things that are after the fact? Or is there some kind of legality there with rights and content that you have to kind of?
It depends on what you bought, and it depends on how you acquired it. I think the biggest challenge in this one is the education on the right situation, because it's something that didn't exist before. It's something new. And I've been in the industry for 25 years. And I remember when I started doing negotiations, we always had theatrical and non-theatrical rights. And then all of a sudden the digital rights came, and no one really knew what digital rights were. So you need to reinvent yourself. And now when you now sign a contract or an acquisition for content, you have 3 pages of rights. And not even all the pages are, everyone understands the same thing for certain rights. And that's a little bit where we are now as well. We're in that transition, that there's new innovations, there's new technology. And how do you deal with that? So you need to, we always say to the distributors, try to implement the virtual product placement rights, in-program sponsorship rights, however you want to call it, in-program advertising rights, but try to make it a point when you either buy or sell rights, because it can benefit you. It can benefit everyone. And so when you are talking about the TV channel with an archive, you could negotiate those rights. Yes, it needs to be looked at if it's possible to edit in the program, because that's what you do. You're adding something, you're adding a layer to the program. Is that a possibility or not? But especially also we see with archive material, people are eager to monetize on that. They're happy to monetize on that, because that was not possible in the past to do it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, when you're looking at that, so I know in the past, whenever we've edited content, it's always gone to, an editor who makes, changes in, let's say, Adobe Premiere or something like that, and then someone comes back in after the fact and does a finishing editing job and produces that content. Is this all done kind of automatically, or is this still a manual process of a person going in there and editing each piece of content?
No, so what we ask from so the way we work, and we get those questions a lot, because also people are afraid it's going to take a long time. It sounds difficult, therefore it might take a long time, but it doesn't. So we can scan 1,000 hours a day, and imagine this one: you make smart content 1,000 hours a day. Well, in my previous role, we were using people to do that, to understand what was in the content. And a person can do up 3 to 5 hours a day of content, process and annotate it and make it smart. And then still, it's a human, and there's a human error. Everything can have an error, by the way. But if you can scan 1,000 hours a day and make that into smart content, then you can scan entire libraries in a matter of weeks, instead of a matter of years. So what we then do is we ingest it, we scan it, we find the opportunity, but we do ask to work with the final version, because we need to know exactly where the frames are, and preferably we work with the broadcast version. So once we've got that opportunity, then for us, it's an automated process to just like with a game, like when you're playing a game, you grab something and you put it in the game. That's how we do it as well. And so you can place it, you can replace it as often as you want, but that's the technology behind it. So there's no difficulty, and we guarantee what I mentioned with sports. We're looking at the live solution. We're going to launch it next year. But with the archive material at this moment, we're delivering everything within 72 hours. So
wow.
You can imagine that's pretty fast.
So how does that work with live then? Because, with the archive, you mentioned you just ingest it, you have tools that kind of find where to place it, edit it, and I guess re-encode it or something like that. But for live, you're doing that instantly without any delay.
Yeah, we will do it on the archive as well, but we need to receive the archive. And so with live, we just need to get the stream. And so once we've got the stream, then I won't tell all the secrets of our CTO. You could try to interview her or do the podcast with her and see if she tells you more. I'm definitely not allowed to share them. But we just need the stream. And we've been doing a lot of testing lately. And we can do things with a 3-frame delay, which is remarkable, I think, personally. And you can pick and choose. So no hardware, nothing special, of course it's super special, but nothing, no special needs from our clients in this sense. So it's just making it easy.
Awesome. So, the benefit, what are all the benefits for the consumer? So like if we're watching TV, you mentioned like Netflix is, changing their model to have an ad supported model now, but is there an opportunity in the future that content will just be free because we'll have optimized this product placement in a way that benefits the consumers, both so that we're seeing things that we're more adept to want to see, being more engaged, but also benefiting the businesses that are wanting to market and advertise in certain ways?
Yeah, so first of all, Riff is really a business to business solution. We work, I work with all the networks, and my colleague works with all the brands and the agencies, and we marry them together. But for the audience, yes, if we can make it profitable enough, then definitely it can replace the advertising. And you mentioned you had children before we started. I've got children, and if I look at the viewing behavior of my children, they hate advertising. They see it as 1, 2, 3 gone. If they can avoid it, then happy days. But people don't mind if it's on screen, if it's in the content. So they really don't mind if there's an extra bottle water or an olive oil or a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi Cola, whatever it is, whatever you want to put in, or shampoo, makeup, they don't mind if it's in the content. If it's naturally put in, then it is. And we've all known that product placement has been very successful. We all know the brands that are in the big films and created a hype. So I think it definitely can. It needs a bit of adjustment by the industry. It needs a bit of recognition by the industry, but it definitely can offer that flexibility on the advertising side as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think back to my kids when they're watching, YouTube or something, and there's an ad. It's like as soon as that skip button pops up, they're going to be tapping it.
Yes, I witness absolutely the same on this side. Then they can't wait to push the button. And I think those 3 seconds, that should be the advertising. Otherwise, you lose them anyways.
Yeah, agreed. And if you can embed it into the content, it becomes more engaging, and you almost don't even realize it's there, but you're getting the benefit of it.
Yeah, but you don't realize it, but you do register it.
Exactly. Yes.
And there's this research where if you see things, I think it's 14 times, then it sticks with you. Mm-hmm. So, and you will, when we were talking earlier about the cooking show, if you think, oh, I'm going to make that dish, and you would be in the store, you would remember that olive oil or that I don't know, another that brand of mayonnaise, and you say, well, if I want it to look and taste the same, I'll take that one. So it will influence the choices you make when you're consuming. Yeah, but we can do much more. It's not only about cups and things. We've also been inserting cars and billboards and posters. Oh, wow. And yeah, so it can be anything. And so we say a lot of the times, and we touched upon it very early in our conversation. One of the things as well, think about the brand safety. How we see completely either talent doing something that we don't want, or or that is not accepted, or sometimes brands. We just had the whole thing about Balenciaga. Yeah. But we also know all about the some of the talent that has done something wrong, with not accepted by society. What do you do then when it's stuck into your content? What if that is flexible? What if you could easily replace that with something else? It creates you won't lose anything on your content or on your brand when you can just take it out or replace or anything. But you also can think about multiple campaigns. I do this brand for 3 months, then I do that brand for 3 months, or I do this brand till it hits 1 million views, and then I'm going to ask them if they want to do more. If not, then I'm going to offer it to another brand. So it just opens up completely new models.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You could sell it based off the number of views. And then if the show's really successful, or the movie's really successful, or documentary, whatever it is that you're doing, then you could either re-up that or swap that out without impacting the content at all.
Yeah, definitely. And therefore we never know what really works and doesn't work, is it? We don't know what the new hit show is. And we don't, and it doesn't even need to be a show. It could also be an influencer, could be anything. But when you see things are going viral, why everyone's looking for the next viral thing? What's next? What's the next series that everyone's going to watch? What's the next viral video? What's the magic? And we don't know. Those answers we don't have. But we do know once we see it starts to get traction, we still can put the brands in. We can still have that brand value, brand recognition for it.
Yeah. So you mentioned somewhat that it can be difficult sometimes to figure out how well something is doing, or what the results of this are. And I've seen that too, where, we have a TV channel I've talked about before. If we market in one way, let's say text message marketing, it's really hard to tie that to the ratings that you're getting on the shows. And sometimes, how difficult is it, or what are some ways that you can like pull analytics off of the number of views versus how well that campaign is performing?
Well, measurement is of course always a challenging topic. Because personally, I think when people say, oh, we can't measure it now. Well, we never could measure it. You know, all the data was always based on panels. We could make an assumption, but we never really, really, really knew who was watching what and how many people exactly. And I think that's such a tricky thing. It's such a difficult thing to find out. I do think there's some solutions to it, but the industry is in such a movement when we've moved from horizontal viewing to vertical viewing, and now the whole advertising models. I think it needs another 5 years to really understand what we could do with measurement. It needs a bit of change. It needs implementation. It needs new innovation. So when people say, oh, how can we do this new measurement? Well, how did you do the old measurement? It actually it's completely the same. You'll never know for sure, but you can make an estimate on what it is. And what we do as well is we keep data of our measurements. So we understand. So for instance, you can imagine if you have a piece of film, something can be in front of some insertions, or what we call a virtual placement opportunity. A VPO can be on the front side, can be on the back side, could be in the middle. And we measure, we try, if we could, and if we can, we try to get the second-to-second ratings, which are very, very helpful for us because we know the exact amount of frames that is in a show. And once we understand that, we understand what a successful opportunity is and what not a successful opportunity is. I'm going to be honest, we can't do it now, but we keep all that data. So once we've got enough data, we are looking at predicting this for people, saying this would be a good one for you. And also one of the other things that we're looking into is brand affinity, you know. Not every, we always talk about content, but not every brand is relevant for every piece of content. So when do you have the highest efficacy? When is a piece of content relevant for your brand? And I think that's an important one that we've been putting on our development list as well, moving forward to enrich our systems.
Yeah, I guess if you keep the data, you can always go back and kind of, compare historical performance based off of the data that you have, and then use that to make really accurate models of prediction for the future, especially if you're using like AI machine learning to help you with that.
Yeah, so if you ask, what can you do now? Well, we do what everyone's doing, but if you say, could you tackle it for the future? Yes, I think in 5 years' time, we can give excellent measurements.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to me of how that's evolving, and also just looking at the history of kind of television and the way things were before. When you watch the show, you had to tune in live and watch it, and then it became more of a DVR type thing, and how that affected ratings and who's watching what. And then now you're looking at streaming, and where does that calculate in? And a lot of, in America, we use the Nielsen rating system. It's a lot of that is still behind the times when it comes to actually getting the streaming information in. So
definitely, yeah. No, I agree with you. It's all limited. I think if you ask anyone, no one would say, oh, I know exactly how to do measurements, or I know exactly who saw this placement at this time, at this channel. That you can approach it, and especially when you've got the second. I think that the second-to-second ratings or the minute-to-minute ratings will already tell a lot.
Yeah. And also you get it, it gets a little bit more difficult too with privacy when you get like the GDPR and CCPA that are in there, affecting some of the things that you can correlate to an individual.
Yeah. 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 We see that with other ways of advertising on this side as well, where people need to give their consent. And if you don't give the consent, you can't measure it. And we see that, other ways of advertising are being affected by that as well. So it's just about finding a new model, a new way of reporting as well, a new way of measuring, but also look at the possibilities, what you can do. The whole industry is changing. I think we will see a lot of new developments in the next 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so fascinating to watch too, just the
Yes.
evolution and even like when you talked about screens, and how people are watching stuff. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she does have a TV in her room now, which a little bit of a challenge, but she doesn't use it. She uses her iPad to watch things or her phone, and she's more. I'm like, you're watching Disney Plus on your phone, but your TV is right there. Why don't you just turn on your TV? And it's like I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, we go to a model where everyone chooses what they want to watch, when they want to watch, and how they want to watch.
Yes.
And that's something I definitely didn't grow up with.
Yeah, I didn't either. It was, we had a certain set of channels, and usually as a family, we all watched together because we had
Yeah.
one TV, and I was
Yeah,
the
and
remote.
fight about it, negotiate which channel.
Yep, exactly. And now it's just very, I guess it's more user friendly because they can choose what they want. It's, I don't know what the right word is for that, but it's definitely
Yeah,
customizable.
it's more individual.
Yep, definitely more
Definitely.
individual. And it's really cool that you could, take things you talked about brand protection and taking out a brand that maybe in the media or in the news for the wrong reasons and replacing that with something that is in the media for the right reasons, so you're not affecting the actual production that you created.
Yeah.
I heard something about a movie someone created a while back that was about it was like a Russian comedy movie, and they ended up shelving it for 2 years because of some of the political pressures that were heating up in Russia. And now with the war in Ukraine, they've just basically put that movie on hold, even though they
Yes.
spent all the money creating it, because they couldn't go in and replace the things that are in there.
No, absolutely. And it's a hazard. And I've seen it many times that that things are being stopped, paused, or put on the shelf because it wasn't the right moment to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe something with the brand, maybe, and every month, year you keep something on the shelf, it's reducing in the value.
Yep.
Your value on the show reduces because it slowly becomes outdated.
Right.
If you don't launch it in the first 3 years, you seriously don't have the return on investment that you need.
Yep. And I guess there's a way to actually keep that more. I remember I was watching a show not too long ago, and they pulled out a phone, and I noticed that it was like an iPhone 6 or something like that, like an older iPhone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that just dated the show for me. If they would have put out like an iPhone 14, it would have made it feel more current. And that's something you could probably easily go in and just swap out to make the content be more engaging and more
Yes,
current.
and we do get those questions. And especially during the COVID period, that was a bit of a lift for us because things were paused. And as you mentioned, things were on the shelf. And then they had new models already. So how do you deal with that? And we could replace the old models with the new models.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, this has been so fascinating. It's so interesting. How can people learn more about the things that you guys are doing over at Rift and maybe connect with you online?
So we've got a website, www.rift.com. But people can always reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn as well, and happy to answer any question that people have. I think it's great to have ideas or interest from people and be able to interact.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's a super cool thing that you guys are doing, and I love the way you integrate technology into content. It just seems really cool. And that's ryff.com.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll link all that up in the show notes too, as well as your LinkedIn profile, so people can connect with you there as well.
Super. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed that episode, please leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, don't forget to check out merch. We have some t-shirts that I've designed that are on at geekleader.com. You can click on the merchandise section there and check that out. And also, don't forget about the books from our guests. So if you like this guest and other guests that have written books, please go ahead and check that out at geekleader.com. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure they would too.